I'm Jeremy. Today's day 398 of reading Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Let's get started. Currently on page 281. Sorry for not posting. It was a bit busy. This letter. He did hope Cyrus would pick up the hint about Hagrid and tell them when he might be back. Harry did not want to ask directly in case it drew too much attention to what Hagrid might be up to while he was not at Hogwarts. Considering it was a very short letter, it had taken a long time to write. Sunlight had crept halfway across the room while he had been working on it, and he could now hear distant sounds of movement from the dormitories above. Sealing the parchment carefully, he climbed through the porthole and headed off for the owlery. I would not go that way if I were you, said Nearly Headless Nick, drifting disconcertingly through a wall just ahead of him as he walked down the passage. Peeves is planning an amusing joke on the next person to pass the bust of Paracelsus halfway down the corridor. Does it involve Paracelsus falling on top of a person's head? Said Harry. Funnily enough, it does, said Nearly Headless Nick in a bored voice. Subtlety has never been Peeves' strong point. I'm off to try and find the bloody bearing. He might be able to put a stop to it. See you, Harry. Yeah, bye, said Harry, and instead of turning right, he turned left, taking a longer but safer route up to the owlery. His spirits rose as he walked past window after window showing brilliantly blue sky. He had training later. He would be back on the Quidditch pitch at last. Something brushed his ankles. He looked down and saw the caretaker's skeletal gray cat, Mrs. Norris, slinking past him. She turned lamp-like yellow eyes upon him for a moment before disappearing behind a statue of Wilfred the Wistful. I'm not doing anything wrong, Harry called after her. She had the unmistakable air of a cat that was off to report to her boss. Yet Harry could not see why. He was perfectly entitled to walk up the owlery on a Saturday morning. The sun was high in the sky now, and when Harry entered the owlery, the glassless windows dazzled his eyes. Thick, silvery beams of sunlight crisscrossed the circular room in which hundreds of owls nestled on rafters, a little restless in the early morning light. Some clearly just returned from hunting. The straw-colored floor crunched a little as he stepped across tiny animal bones, craning his neck for a sight of Hedwig. There you are, he said, spotting her somewhere near the very top of the vaulted ceiling. Get down here. I've got a letter for you. With a low hoot, she stretched her great white wings and soared down onto his shoulder. What, right. I know this says Snuffles on the outside, he told her, giving her the letter to clasp in her beak and, without knowing exactly why, whispering, but it's for Cyrus, okay? She blinked her amber eyes once, and he took that to mean that she understood. Safe flight, then, said Harry, and he carried her to one of the windows. With a moment's pressure on his arm, Hedwig took off into the blindingly bright sky. Harry watched her until she became a tiny black speck and vanished, then switched his gaze to Hagrid's hut, clearly visible from this window, and just as clearly uninhabited, the chimney smokeless, the curtains drawn. The treetops of the Forbidden Forest swayed in a light breeze. Harry watched them, savoring the fresh air on his face, thinking about Quidditch later, and then he saw it. A great reptilian-winged horse, just like the ones pulling the Hogwarts carriages, with leathery black wings spread wide like a pterodactyl's, rose up out of the trees like a grotesque giant bird. It soared in a great circle and then plunged once more into the trees. The whole thing had happened so quickly that Harry could hardly believe what he had seen, except that his heart was hammering madly. The owlery door opened behind him. He leapt in shock, and turning quickly, saw Cho Chang holding a letter and a parcel in her hands. Hi, said Harry automatically. Oh, hi, she said breathlessly. I didn't think anyone would be here up this early. I only remembered 5 minutes ago. It's my mom's birthday. She held up the parcel. Right, said Harry. His brain seemed to have jammed. He wanted to say something funny and interesting, but the memory of that terrible winged horse was fresh in his mind. Nice day, he said, gesturing to the windows. His insides seemed to shrivel with embarrassment. The weather. He was talking about the weather. Yeah, said Cho, looking around for a suitable owl. Good Quidditch conditions. I haven't been out all week. Have you? No, said Harry. Cho had selected one of the school barn owls. She coaxed it down onto her arms where it held out an obliging leg so that she could attach the parcel. Hey, has Governor got a new keeper yet? She asked. Yeah, said Harry. It's my friend Ron Weasley. Do you know him? The tornado hater? Said Cho rather coolly. Is he any good? Yeah, said Harry. I think so. I didn't see his tryout, though. I was in detention. Cho looked up. The parcel only half attached to the owl's leg. That Umbridge woman's foul, she said in a low voice, putting you in detention just because you told the truth about how he died. Everyone heard about it. It was all over the school. You're really brave standing up to her like that. Harry's insides reinflated so rapidly he felt as though he might actually float a few inches off the dropping-strewn floor. Who cared about a stupid flying horse? Cho thought he had been really brave. For a moment, he considered accidentally on purpose showing her his cut hand as he helped her tie her parcel onto her owl. But the very instant that this thrilling thought occurred, the owlery door opened again. Filch, the caretaker, came wheezing into the room. There were purple patches on his sunken main cheeks. His jowls were a-quiver, and his thin gray hair disheveled. He had obviously run here. Mrs. Norris came trotting at his heels, gazing up at the owls overhead and meowing hungrily. There was a restless shifting of wings from above, and a large brown owl snapped his beak in a menacing fashion. Aha! Said Filch, taking a flat-footed step toward Harry, his pouchy cheeks trembling with anger. I've had a tip-off that you're intending to place a massive order for dung bombs. Harry folded his arms and stared at the caretaker. Who told you I was ordering dung bombs? Cho was looking from Harry to Filch, also frowning. The barn owl on her arm, tired of standing on one leg, gave an admonitory hoot, but she ignored it. I have my sources, said Filch in a self-satisfied hiss. Now hand over whatever it is you're sending. Feeling immensely thankful that he had not dawdled in posting off the letter, Harry said, I can't. It's gone. Gone? Said Filch, his face contorting with rage. Gone, said Harry calmly. Filch opened his mouth furiously, mouthed for a few seconds, then raked Harry's rose with his eyes. How do I know you haven't got it in your pocket? Because I saw him send it, said Cho angrily. Filch rounded on him. You saw him? That's right, I saw him, she said fiercely. There was a moment's pause in which Filch glared at Cho, and Cho glared right back. Then the caretaker turned on his heel and shuffled back toward the door. He stopped with his hands on the handle and looked back at Harry. If I get so much as a whiff of a dung bomb. He stumped off down the stairs. Mrs. Norris cast a last longing look at the owls and followed him. Harry and Cho looked at each other. Thanks, Harry said. No problem, said Cho, finally fixing the parcel to the barn owl's other leg, her face slightly pink. You weren't ordering dung bombs, were you? No, said Harry. I wonder why he thought you were, then, she said, as she carried the owl to the window. Harry shrugged. He was quite as mystified by that as she was, though oddly, it was not bothering him very much at the moment. They left the owlery together. At the entrance of a corridor that led to the west wing of the castle, Cho said, I'm going this way. Well, I'll see you around, Harry. Yeah, see you. She smiled at him and departed. He walked on, feeling quietly elated. He had managed to have an entire conversation with her and not embarrassed himself once. You were really brave standing up to her like that. She had called him brave. She did not hate him for being alive. Of course, she had preferred Cedric. He knew that. Though if he had only asked her to the ball before Cedric had, things might have been turned out differently. She had seemed sincerely sorry that she had refused when Harry had asked her. Morning, Harry said brightly to Ron and Hermione, joining them at the Gryffindor table in the Great Hall. Take care, everyone. That's all for today. Bye. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to read page 286. Bookmark, close. Peace out. See you tomorrow.